All right, Sue, go for it.
Good afternoon, guys. I have some questions for you guys, but you need to count how many times you say yes to my questions. Have you ever felt it's difficult to finish your task even though you're almost done? Do you feel it's difficult to do something as an order? Do you forget your appointments or something that you have to do? Do you keep postponing or avoiding to do something, especially a difficult one? If you sit on for a long time, do you feel it's do you keep touching your hands or moving your feet, or you just can't stay with that? Have you ever felt that you cannot stop saying or doing something very quickly, like crazy? If you say yes more than 4 times, you need to see a doctor because you may have ADHD. ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's a mental disorder that you have difficulty concentrating or acting something. Today I'm going to talk about ADHD. First, I'll talk about causes of ADHD. Second, I'll discuss characteristics of ADHD. Lastly, I'll discuss the case study of ADHD. Let's start with causes. There are 3 types of causes of ADHD, which is heredity, injured brain, and exposure to toxin. So heredity is first causes of ADHD. Heredity is you have DNA from your parents. So if your parents or one of your family has ADHD, you could have ADHD too. Second causes of ADHD is injured brain. So if you have trauma, brain tumor, stroke or disease, you could have ADHD too. Trauma is you have a psychological reaction after you got an accident or a huge disaster. Stroke means you have a big, huge shock in your brain. Third types of ADHD is exposure to toxin. If you are exposed to toxins such as nicotine, drugs, alcohol, you could have ADHD too. If mother smokes or drink alcohol during her pregnancy, the baby could have ADHD in the future. Also, if children were exposed to toxin, those kinds of toxin, they could have ADHD in their future too. I've talked about the causes of ADHD. Now I'll talk about the characteristics of ADHD. There are 3 types of ADHD, which are inattentive ADHD, hyperactivity impulsive ADHD, and combined ADHD. So first, I'd like to talk about inattentive ADHD. In this case, the patients of ADHD will have a difficulty with paying attention to details. They will get distracted easily. Also, they have difficulty organizing and completing their tasks. They tend to avoid and dislike to do something that require their mental effort. They are forgetful in their daily activities. Second types of ADHD is hyperactivity impulsive. Hyperactivity is the state of being active with too much hypertension. Impulsive means take an act without thinking or considering. So in this case, hyperactivity and impulsive, the aspect of hyperactivity and impulsive are shown together. So the main symptoms of hyperactivity impulsive ADHD is they often talk excessively, and they often has difficulty awaiting their turns, and they will keep fidgeting with their hands and feet. Fidget means you feel nervous, so you keep moving your body. You can't stay with calm. Third types of ADHD is combined ADHD. Inattentive ADHD and hyperactivity impulsive ADHD are combined together. In this case, this is very worst case because the patients of this ADHD will have symptoms from both ADHD. So these patients will get distracted easily and they can stay with calm. So it's the worst case of ADHD. Now you know the types of ADHD and the symptoms of each type of ADHD. What is the real case study of ADHD? There's one guy whose name is Joe. Joe is 25 years old man. Of course, he has an ADHD. He was a subject of case study was done by University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. This is the professor who organized the case study of Joe. He never has diagnosed ADHD, but when he was 15 years old, he played basketball and he got injury. Because of this injury, he had to take medicine, which is painkiller. And then he got addicted to this medicine. But now he got over his addiction to painkiller, but he has ADHD symptoms. So the main symptoms of Joe is he has a forgetfulness and he has trouble with focusing and he has an inability to complete his tasks. Also, he feels anxiety and depression. And he said he becoming impatiently easily and he losing his interest in his job and work. Those things affect on his life a lot. Because of this ADHD, he couldn't finish his school, so he finished high school by himself. Also, he feels overwhelmed by the list of tasks that he has to do. He gets stressed a lot, and he said when every morning when he wakes up, he feels like, how do I deal with everything that I have to do for a whole day? Today I talked about ADHD disorder. I talked about causes of ADHD, and I talked about characteristics of ADHD. Lastly, I discussed about case study of ADHD. Sometimes we are required to have concentration in doing our school stuff, job, or in more important things. People tend to think that it's a common thing that someone has a difficulty concentrating or focusing on doing something. However, it could be a serious disorder like Joe. As I asked you guys at the beginning, maybe you have a disorder, even though it's not a serious one. It may seem nothing, but it may cause a serious problem too. So if you notice your problem this time, I think this is a good chance to fix your problem.